WTF just happened, Matt. Things are going crazy out there. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are fighting. We're going to break it all down for you freaks. Welcome to Rabbit Hole Recap.
Yeah.
Yo. Oh. What a couple weeks. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, freaks.
Well, Friday, early afternoon rip. To end the week. It's been a bit of a hell of a week for me personally, but very happy to be here with all of you. Seems like there's a few things to talk about. Top of mind. Everybody in the country, potentially the world, is this spat between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, but I think we'll touch on it. I don't know what your feelings are towards it, Matt.
You want to start with the dashboard and then we'll jump in?
Yeah. Let me pull up the dashboard on my phone. Price of Bitcoin is at $105,280. One cuckbuck's going to get you 950 sats. You are at a $2.09 trillion market cap. We are officially, big news of the week in the Bitcoin world, above 900,000. We're at block height 900,060. We crossed over the 900,000th block last night. It's pretty significant. And very close to a million. 90% of the way to a million blocks.
It's crazy. The shitcoiners didn't really seem to care about block 900,000. Like, we didn't even really have much mempool demand.
No.
They picked, and it's, it's weird.
I saw Mountainot trolling people. Very disappointing. Nobody's using Bitcoin on chain these days. What's going on out there? But with that said, having crossed over block 900,000, maybe we'll add some stats to the dashboard this week, or our reading of the dashboard. Since the Genesis block, 19,874,969.59 Bitcoin have been distributed to the market. That's 94.64% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist. There are currently 4,167.55 Bitcoin locked up in the Lightning Network. There have been 1,199,521,100 transactions since the Genesis block. According to Clark's dashboard, there is 866.6 exahash per second of mining hash rate being dedicated to the network. We are 1,092 blocks away from the next difficulty adjustment, which means there was a difficulty adjustment between last week's rip and today, which was a 4.4% upwards adjustment. As of right now, the next adjustment's looking to be on June 13th, 2025, and it's looking like a negative 3.6% adjustment as of right now. There are currently 6,068 transactions in Clark's well-endowed mempool. And that is the state of the network. 2 sats per VByte if you have a high priority, or 3 sats per VByte if you have a high priority transaction, according to Clark's dashboard. 900,000 blocks. Pretty significant.
It's pretty funny that you're on the road, but I'm broadcasting live from your studio.
It is. Logan, zoom out. What's it like having Matt in the studio today?
Welcome, freaks.
What's up, freaks?
Another Rabbit Hole Recap.
Here in the studio with Matt.
Before we get started, I just want to answer some YouTube questions. I see some YouTube questions. Carbon Marine is asking if it's worth it to upgrade to the VIP pass for Plan B Lugano 2025. Costs an extra $2,000. I have no idea. I think the conference is going to be great, and you should definitely come through for it. They always throw a really good event over there in Lugano. Lugano itself is a pretty special city. It's a Bitcoin circular economy where you can spend Bitcoin in many of the locations throughout the city. I was just, in general, in general, you're usually better off staying humble and stacking sats rather than paying for the VIP tickets. You'll still get a lot of the experience just being GA and general admission.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on what your goal is. Are you trying to meet specific individuals to do something from a business perspective or get something in front of somebody? Maybe. Could be worth it that way, but if you're just going to the conference to enjoy the company of Bitcoiners and the content of the conference, you're probably best with GA.
I don't even know what the VIP pass gets you, but if it's like other events, usually it's you have a special area where the speakers are hanging out and other VIP pass holders are hanging out. And then I see John M asking if he should YOLO into STRK, which is one of Sailor's preferred stock offerings. First of all, I question the term YOLO in this respect. I mean, it's a dividend yield stock. Usually, that's part of a more conservative strategy than a YOLO strategy. But you know, I think it could make sense for some people. In general, I prefer to just hold real Bitcoin. I think you're going to miss out on significant upside if you try and seek cash flow at this point in Bitcoin's adoption cycle.
You should YOLO into the Strike app and smash buy Bitcoin. I think that's always a good strategy.
There you go.
We're gonna flip the script there. YOLOing into the Strike app is always a good strategy.
It's still ridiculous that he used Strike as the name for that. It's super fucking confusing. It feels like it had to be intentional. Okay, so let's talk about the topic of the week, which is the Trump Elon war. What is your opinion?
Kind of surprising, not gonna lie. I was very busy yesterday, and as you may be able to tell, I'm sitting in a throne in a hotel. I'm in Chicago for a wedding, a college buddy's wedding, and so I was catching up and following along on the plane ride here, and it looked like a pretty public meltdown from Elon's perspective. Poor form, I think. So I guess for anybody who's living under a rock and doesn't understand the impetus for this blow up, it has to do with the big, beautiful bill, and it seems like Elon is not happy with the amount of cuts that are being made in the bill, considering all the work he's been doing at Doge since Trump got inaugurated. I think he was running with the assumption that there would be serious cuts to a lot of the egregious spending that exists at the federal government level. I think Trump's perspective is, hey, we got some concessions in terms of rolling over tax benefits, lower tax rates for citizens and businesses, and there are some cuts on the back end. And one of the trade-offs of making those concessions is that we're able to focus on the border, and many conservative pundits are saying that the border is the most important thing right now to bring down cost immediately, to stop the inflow of immigrants leeching on the welfare system. And I don't know, Elon went nuclear. I tweeted out, it seems like he burned the bridge and the boats. So I think he's in a situation where it seems like, and who knows, Trump's been speaking on the topic this morning, saying, hey, yesterday he said they're going to have a conversation privately. Today he was acting very nonchalant about it. So who knows, maybe they'll make amends, but I could certainly see it being a case where he burned the bridge and at the same time is burning the boats. Like, okay, I've got to go it alone. And I think Trump's been posturing like retaliatory pulling of funding and subsidies for Tesla and SpaceX, and it was fun. It was a great day on the internet, I'll say that, but I think in the long run it's noise.
It was it was kind of like gradually, then suddenly, right? Like there was slow simmers of it, and then it just kind of exploded. Just a couple highlights. Elon effectively called Trump an Epstein pedo.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And trashed the bill, trashed Trump. Started by quote tweeting a lot of Trump's old tweets. Trump threatened to cut the subsidies. Was just in general talking shit about Elon on his social platform, Truth Social. So one was posting on Truth Social, one was posting on X. And he made fun of Elon's black eye, which was kind of an interesting development if you're familiar with the Black Eye Club.
Well, let's tell people about the Black Eye Club. What is that?
Well, why don't this is your expertise.
There's many pictures out there of prominent figures, public figures, politicians, celebrities, tech elites. Black eye. And the theory is that you get introduced and accepted into some Illuminati-like group that does nefarious things, and to do it you have to get punched in the face and then be seen publicly with the black eyes, some sort of like humiliation ritual and initiation.
Yeah, the key part is that you have to actually be like on camera with the black eye.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to highlight how many people think this was a psyop. I do not think this was a staged.
I saw you reposted a note from a year ago. I really like that note. What did you say?
Thinking everything is a psyop is the psyop. People just don't want to believe their eyes anymore, and they just write off everything, which makes it really hard to adapt in an ever-flowing environment. So I would caution people against that. I think that's a Nostr post that I'm just going to be retweeting all through Mandibles and the Bitcoin Standard. It's just going to be an evergreener. I mean, look, I'm open to being convinced otherwise. I just don't see the motives here for why that would be the case. And it seemed too real how it simmered and then kind of blew up. And Elon tends to be very spontaneous in terms of just sending his thoughts onto X. But I mean, and no matter how you cut it, like, I don't think this is like Elon trying to get back with the libs. I think most libs have already written him off. His stock got fucking hammered. I don't think this was a good look for Trump. Like, I don't think having it highlighted that he was so close to Epstein is a positive thing, especially coming from the richest man in the world who has a massive pedestal. But one thing I did highlight, which is in the show notes, the only link I posted in the show notes, there's so many that were going down, was this comment from Elon, which I think should not be lost on people. Laura Loomer came out in the beginning. It was very early on. It was just when Elon started it kind of and said that Trump would have lost if it wasn't for him. And Laura Loomer, she was like, people in DC are trying to decide which side should they pick. And Elon responded, some food for thought as they ponder this question. Trump has 3.5 years left as president, but I will be around for 40 plus years, ...
Whoa, I didn't catch that.
Which, I mean, I think the subtext of that should be pretty obvious to people. It seemed like a pretty big threat to anyone who was reading it.
Yeah, and I know the biggest psyop is thinking everything is a psyop, but to cover the bases, not saying I think any of this is true, but just to report what is happening out there. The theories of 4D chess / KFOB, like choreographed public spat for ulterior motives, is number one, the Epstein list. It's like the only way to actually get it released is to say that Trump was on it, and then the Democrats will be like, get it out there, and then it'll be released. He won't be on it. That's one of the theories the Q people are running with. The other sort of theory is what you said. Like, he also called for his impeachment. Like, he should be impeached, and JD Vance should be elevated to president. And then the theory there is that this is the small tech Silicon Valley sort of move being made to take out like incumbent MAGA and take over as the.
But that's not. I mean, I wouldn't
Party.
I wouldn't classify that as like, if I put something in the PSYOP category, it would be that him and Trump planned this together. I mean, him calling for Trump's impeachment is clearly not good for Trump. And it doesn't even, like, if they release the Epstein list and Trump is not implicated in it, who's going to believe that either? Like, that part doesn't make sense to me either. I don't know. Anyway, a lot of this is noise. A lot of this isn't noise. I think when the richest man in the world gets into a public fight with one of the most powerful men in the world, that affects everybody. I think people that rely on Elon's businesses are probably the most affected. I wouldn't be surprised if those businesses get caught in the crosshairs, in the crossfire. And I think the Tesla stock price was proof of that. It's just like immediately just started fucking dumping.
Yeah, I mean, that when it comes to like Tesla, Starlink, SpaceX, which I guess is part of Starlink, certainly there. And then like other side of the coin with X too, I think while using that platform moving forward, I would have it in the back of your mind that if Elon has a vendetta against the president of the United States and has control of that platform, I would think twice about what you're being fed and how you're potentially being psychologically manipulated to believe certain things.
I mean, what about X has been having stability issues. It's been going on like for a couple of weeks now, a month or so, where it just goes down different regions for a bit. I mean, I think there's a non-zero chance that you wake up one morning and X is down for 12 hours, 24 hours. I think at this point it's a pretty significant piece of social infrastructure. So in that kind of situation, how do you get information? How does the world react?
I think we know an alternative that has to do with relaying notes and other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would say now more than ever, I think it's pretty important that we have a neutral, open protocol that allows people to communicate in a verifiable way, and I think Nostr provides that.
Yeah. No, in the long run, I think this will be noise, and like the things we're bringing up, like the two big topics of the day yesterday were the bill, which started the fight, and then when Elon proclaimed that the Epstein list hasn't been released because DJT is on the list. Like those two things alone, like number one, we all know that nothing stops this train. You're going to have to keep issuing debt and printing money. Where the path forward has been clear for many years. Been clear to many post 2008, but certainly clear to more post 2020. Like they're just going to print their way out of the debt problem. And so even with all the effort that was put in with Doge and the sort of fervor around that movement to bring accountability and cost efficiencies to the federal government, it's mathematically impossible to rein it in because you need to issue more debt and more dollars to pay back the debt that we've already accrued. And then when it comes to the Epstein list, like obviously there's something going on there. People of power conspire and they do bad things, and we all know that. But is the releasing of the Epstein list really going to do anything? I mean, that whole black book, the black book's been out there for years, which is essentially a list of people that were on his plane at different periods of time. It's not to say that they're implicated in sex trafficking or whatever, but many of them may have been. I tweeted this out last night. Like, the focus should be, if you're watching the show, if you're looking out at the chaos of the world, whether it's Trump versus Elon, the Epstein stuff, we're going to talk about what's happening in Ukraine, in Russia later in the episode. But the path forward is blinders on, grassroots efforts, build your way out of it using tools like Bitcoin, Nostr. Like, these people aren't coming to save you. They can't even agree on a spending bill. Like, we got to build our way out of this.
Strong individuals, strong communities, use the tools, empower yourself, opt out. Yeah, I mean, two pieces there before we move on. Like, first of all, I do not know how someone can believe that Elon shitting all over the quote unquote big, beautiful bill is positive news for Trump. Like, Trump has thrown his full weight behind it. The bill is a piece of shit. It's fucking a horrible bill. It is truly big. But to call it beautiful is quite the stretch of imagination. On the Epstein stuff, like, who can even believe anything that gets released anymore? It's like there are a lot of very strong politically connected people involved. And no matter what gets released at this point, I think you're already seeing that famous 2002 article in the New York Mag about Epstein and Trump starting to get recirculated again, which is just the most damning quote ever. Do you know which piece I'm talking about?
I do not recall.
I do not recall. Okay, Hillary. I have it up right now. So 2002, the New York Mag did a piece on Epstein, and Trump was quoted in it saying, "I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy." Trump booms from a speakerphone. "He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life." Which is like the fucking most damning quote ever. So there you go.
There you go, freaks. Build your way out. These people aren't coming to save you.
Anyway, in this whole timeline, I don't think we could be better situated, us and the ride or dies. So shout out us.
Shout out to us, and to pay homage to the clickbait YouTube title. Like, this is like everything going down right now highlights the value prop of a globally distributed, neutral monetary protocol with a finitely scarce asset tied to it. Ultimately scarce asset tied to it. The value prop for Bitcoin, just being able to opt out of all the BS going on in that system in some way. Obviously, you're not immune to all the effects of the decisions that are made by the federal government, but that's the beauty of Bitcoin. You can control what you do with your money by putting it in a wallet that you control and using this open source monetary network as your financial system. You can do that take that one action to remove yourself from the system in a small way, or a very big way, actually.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, Bitcoin near all-time highs, markets were panicking as all this was unfolding, and markets held the line at 100K Bitcoin is pretty. Once again, another bullish dump. I feel like the dump down to like 75-ish or whatever after quote unquote Liberation Day, and then this dump just feels like sometimes the dumps are the most bullish thing, depending on where they stop.
I mean, the fact that we didn't go.
There's a lot of demand and recognition out there that Bitcoin is the safe haven, that there is no second best.
And I think markets are rallying broadly today. The S&P's up a bit. Bitcoin's up like 4% today. I think it's outperforming the rest of the market today. Like the slingshot back to where we were yesterday. Very bullish. The fact that we didn't go under 100K, very comforting to know that that's a very strong level that people are deciding they don't want to sell below that. So yeah, I think Bitcoin's value prop's only becoming clearer and clearer by the day.
I see Queen in the YouTube chat saying that she switched her direct deposit to Fold and cussed her boss out. Don't. It's too early to cuss your boss out. Don't.
Queen.
You need to keep stacking.
Queen, you need to fiat mine as long as possible. Yeah, that was the. And on this note, this applies to the Elon Trump thing too. I think one of the funnier tweets I saw this morning was somebody playing the clip from the one Seinfeld episode where George apes out on his boss, and then goes back to Jerry's house. He's like, "Why would you do that?" And then he goes back to work the next day and just pretends like nothing happened. I could see Elon doing that.
Okay, well, next on the list is some sombering news, and it has to do with the Coinbase. Has to do with the Coinbase compromise, and I call it a compromise, not a hack, because it was the customer service reps at Coinbase that compromised the personal information of what appears to be a majority of Coinbase users from my conversations. Now, Coinbase has said that it only affected 1% of people. My understanding, and obviously I don't have any internal information at Coinbase, is that this compromise was customer service reps having full database access to customer transaction history, including all Bitcoin addresses used for withdrawals and deposits, home addresses, phone numbers, emails, and bank info. Very, very poor security practices over at Coinbase. Now, obviously, KYC AML laws are at the crux of this problem, and they put real users at threat, something we've talked about for many years here on the show. While criminals are able to just use fake or stolen or bought KYC information to circumvent these requirements. So it just puts honest users at risk while criminals are still able to get through these systems. But I think just focusing on the KYC aspect lets Coinbase off the hook a little bit here, because customer service reps should not have access to that private personal information. And they definitely shouldn't have. And if you do give them access, it should be very isolated with proper access controls and on a case-by-case basis. So right now, my understanding is whoever has access to this database is basically going through the high net worths, going through their most valuable clientele, and targeting them. Our friend Joe Rogers, who recently joined AnchorWatch, which is a 1031 portfolio company, we're the largest investor by far in AnchorWatch, had his first customer call this week with a client who was burglarized, and he was afraid that they were going to come back for more, and so he was one of the victims of this leak. Now, AnchorWatch can be one piece of this solution for people, because they do provide, first of all, they hold your hand to set up multi-sig. So if you're intimidated by multi-sig, they hold your hand for that process. And second of all, they provide Lloyd's of London cover. They're Lloyd's of London cover holders, so they provide Lloyd's of London insurance that includes theft. So in the worst case scenario, if you do end up on the opposite side of a malicious individual trying to take your Bitcoin and they successfully take your Bitcoin, that is actually covered under their insurance policies, which is first of kind. But in the meantime, you have very strong self-custody, collaborative custody situation. But just something that I want the freaks to be aware of here. I think this is just fucking horrible how this happened. And Eric Kaysen responded to my Nostr post. He actually was he was in a managerial role at Coinbase support a few years ago when they decided to switch to external call centers and provide all this information. And he said he warned the execs, but nobody listened to them. So just another case of short-term thinking from Coinbase. And if you put it in the scheme of things, like, yes, Coinbase listing Fartcoin is a complete embarrassment, both to their users, their shareholders, and the broader industry. But this lapse in judgment and poor practices is much worse.
Well, I think they're sort of related, right? Like the Coinbase is this casino, and we've talked about this many times over the years, and it's part of the reason why we started 1031 and why we back Bitcoin only companies, because when you're focused on Bitcoin and you know the ethos of Bitcoin and the wants and desires of Bitcoiners who understand these risks, you build a product focused on that. Anchor Watch is an example. Unchained is an example. Strike
is a good example here, right? I mean, we spent years complaining about decisions that were made by Coinbase. Turns out that's incredibly ineffective. What is really effective is building out better alternatives. And that comes in many forms, right? That comes in the form of regulated businesses that interface with the banking system, like Strike, like Unchained, regulated businesses that interact with insurance, like Anchor Watch, but also companies that offer multi-sig options to buy without KYC or to take loans without KYC, like Peach and HODL. And I think the solution here is to basically build as many options as possible for Bitcoiners so that they can choose what works best for them, and do it in a more user-focused, ethical way, and compete in the open market, because it doesn't matter how many angry tweets you send, like, Coinbase is going to continue fucking over their users.
Yeah, this is really bad. And while we're on the topic too, I know you have it further down the list, but it's in the same vein as this, but the mastermind behind the French Bitcoin attacks was arrested in Morocco. So it seems like the attempted kidnapping of the daughter of an OG Bitcoin business owner in France a few weeks ago was also connected with the kidnapping of one of the Ledger co-founders last year. And so it seems like there is a mastermind who was operating out of Morocco, sort of finding minions in France to go do these attacks and targeting these high net worth individuals in the Bitcoin space.
I spend an hour carefully crafting the order of our list, and Marty just jumps around. But
what? This is tied together.
Yeah, I know. It worked well. I mean, a lot of us were wondering why we were seeing so many attacks in France, and now it makes sense. They have a heavy Moroccan population in France, and there was effectively this gang leader that was orchestrating it all. And because of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, he was able to profit from it while the lackeys were getting arrested in France, right? Like, the people actually doing it, they were getting them, but they weren't recovering the money, and the money was going back to this guy. And actually, all things considered, they got him relatively quickly. I mean, I think this was about 6-month phenomenon, all said and done. I would reiterate, first of all, we've talked about this in the past. Privacy obviously has a big aspect here, right? And the KYC laws that affect our privacy, and docs home addresses to malicious individuals. But I think also security practices have a big place here in terms of how you decide to secure Bitcoin and do it according to your threat model to be as resistant as possible and not be a soft target, right? We see a lot of criminals tend to go after the softer targets. I think personal defense and home security is a key aspect here, and Bitcoiners should be thinking about this. Stuff like cameras and guns and self-defense training and contingency plans are incredibly important. But I will just reiterate one more time that I don't think this is necessarily a phenomenon that is going to be isolated to Bitcoiners. I think now that we're entering this Bitcoin age where everyone is expected to have easy access to Bitcoin, and it's relatively easy to get access if you haven't had it already, as a high net worth individual, you're at risk. I think it's any wealthy person. And we're seeing this happen with influencers being targeted that are not necessarily Bitcoiners. And we saw that with the ransomware tendency where they were hitting hospitals and stuff that didn't have Bitcoin treasuries, but they were expected to go get Bitcoin to pay off the ransoms. So with all the good that comes with freedom money, also comes the fact that if you can send and save money without permission, then so can criminals. And I think we're going to, especially if society and the foundations of society are in turmoil and people are hurting out there, we're going to see these types of crimes increase rather than decrease.
Completely agree. And I see what you were alluding to with the ordering of the list, but I think this is a good precursor to.
You did good, bro. Before we go to the next, I just Mav21 and Soapmine are both zapped us 21,000 sats. Thank you for your support, guys.
Thank you,
it
guys.
really does mean a lot.
It is like we just described. There's incredible risks that come, especially when companies in the space have leaky security protocols and collect a bunch of data, don't secure it, contract third world support that does not care about the data, has access to the data, and will sell the data to black markets. And at the same time, you had the government here in the United States and many other governments around the world, particularly in Europe, attacking the right of individual Bitcoiners to preserve their privacy on chain specifically. And they're not only attacking that right of individuals to preserve their privacy through tools like CoinJoin, they're attacking the developers that make those tools. And so this was pretty shocking, especially considering how the Trump administration has been posturing toward the Bitcoin industry since he took office and when he was campaigning. And obviously JD Vance was just at the Bitcoin conference last week. And then yesterday, I believe this was yesterday morning, the Secret Service.
2 days ago.
2 days ago, the Secret Service published a blog about CoinJoin, claiming that it's used for money laundering and named Wasabi and Samurai by name in their bulletin.
They also named Crew, who's an anon who's running a nonprofit Wasabi coordinator right now, the largest Wasabi coordinator right now.
Not great. They're doubling down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to get caught up in this, Bitcoin is inevitable, we're winning kind of mindset. But the fight wages on, and I think it's important that people don't let their guard down, and we keep pushing both on the tooling side and on the policy side. We have a judge also at the same time ruled that the Tornado Cash developer, which is an Ethereum privacy tool, it's still running, can't use a defense that Tornado Cash was self-custody, despite the government recently saying that self-custody projects do not fall under money transmitter rules, which is another troubling development on this side. So right now, we have 4 privacy-focused developers in this space, the 2 Samurai developers and the 2 Tornado Cash developers facing charges, facing long jail sentences. These things can set precedent. Their legal bills are going through the roof, and they need support. And so you can support them at p2prights.org with Bitcoin anonymously or with fiat. And it is tax deductible if you don't want to give it anonymous. If you're willing to dox yourself, you get a tax deduction. Obviously, if you give an anonymous donation, you can't get a tax deduction.
Yeah, I'm just checking the list. I don't think you have it on the list, but I think it's important right now, especially to highlight to the SaveOurWallets.org initiative, which is around I believe, the Blockchain Clarity Act, which would enshrine into law the ability of Bitcoin developers to build these tools without being labeled money transmitters. So I believe Matt Corallo and many other devs are leading the charge there. But there is this act that Tom Emmer and Richie Torres are bringing to the House, I believe. And so if you want a way to enshrine this into law outside of the precedent of cases, which is happening with Samurai and Tornado Cash, go to saveourwallets.org, and they have information on how you can reach out to your Congress, your local congressmen and senators, and let them know that this is something that you care about and would like to see passed into law.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important call out. And these topics will be discussed in DC in a few weeks at the Bitcoin Policy Summit. Corallo specifically will be also speaking there. I've seen some of the agenda. I mean, it's very on point and very focused on using Bitcoin as freedom money and protecting open source software in America. At the end of the day, this is a national security issue, right? I think America is, I'll speak as an American now. I think America is much stronger if we embrace freedom technologies. I think it's the core of the American spirit. And I think rules going otherwise puts Americans at risk and puts the country at risk at whole. So we need to get this right. And if you've learned anything from the original crypto wars, success here has a policy component, right? It's not just building the tools. It's also making sure that we don't have to constantly look over our back and be afraid that our own government's going to throw us in the gulags.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned everybody's focused on number go up. Publicly traded Bitcoin treasury companies, the posturing of the administration at the helm of the executive branch right now being very, at least narrative-wise, being accommodative to the industry and Bitcoin. But these are red lines in the sand that nobody can cross them. The Trump administration can talk a big game about wanting to embrace Bitcoin and to incorporate it into the U.S. economy, and big TradFi guys like Cantor Fitzgerald and Michael Saylor can talk a big game about Bitcoin being this pristine collateral asset, this digital capital of the new age. It's going to go to tens of millions of dollars ultimately. But if they don't get on this side of the red line and stick up for the developers that are building the software that enable Bitcoin to be used as a peer-to-peer digital currency and allow it to be used in ways that preserve people's privacy, then they're not really for Bitcoin. And that's the other thing for anybody out there saying, "Oh, don't muddy the water. Like we have a lot of big wins. Like Bitcoin as capital is a win enough." Like Bitcoin doesn't have value if it doesn't have these peer-to-peer properties, and those peer-to-peer properties are going to go away if developers do not feel comfortable writing software that enables people to use it in a peer-to-peer fashion. So there's a red line that cannot be crossed.
Look, if you can't interact with the Bitcoin network without trust, and you can't verify it yourself, there's no value there. If you can't spend your money without permission, you don't actually have any money. You just have an IOU. All of these things are interconnected and reliant on each other. And it's more important than ever for anyone with a significant stake in Bitcoin, anyone who relies on Bitcoin for their family's livelihood like we do, to push these things forward. I see 2 comments, one from the Ride or Die chat at rhr.tv/stream from Average Gary, commenting that the Bitcoin veterans, just to go back to the recent spate of thefts in France, the Bitcoin veterans do have an event where they talk all about security. They take that very seriously. They're helping train people, giving you basic skills. And then in the YouTube chat, I see Paul Cumez saying, get a gun, dogs, cameras, and a black belt. I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
And I also see BTC Wrestle saying, stop using KYC services, problem solved. Look, we've been as vocal as pretty much anyone that's public in this space about the risk of KYC and the threats that they pose. I mean, at the end of the day, what these laws mean is that regulated businesses in the space are creating lists of Bitcoiners, our transaction history, and our intimate personal information. That's fucking horrible. I think people don't realize that it's not really the Bitcoin that's KYC'd, it's the individuals that are KYC'd. That's not me making light of it. That's even worse in a lot of ways. Usually if someone's making a list of people, it's a bad thing. It's a really negative thing. I don't think the solution is that simple. I think, first of all, regulated services can do a better job and be more protective over their users and take this more seriously. I mean, protecting private information should be held at the same level as protecting Bitcoin itself. Like this stuff is, there's intimate trust involved. I think things like Lightning deposits and Lightning withdrawals reduce a lot of the information that these services have. I think being very deliberate of who you share personal information with goes a long way. But at the end of the day, you could use no KYC services, and fortunately we have more and more of them available. And I do have in the list a new Nostr powered service that provides a dashboard so you can see a global order book of P2P services, of P2P market orders. And still people might know that you interact with Bitcoin. I mean, Marty and I could buy all no KYC stuff and we're still clearly Bitcoiners. So it's not as simple as that. There's nuance here. I know people hate nuance. But these are things that we need to grapple with as an industry, but also that individuals have to take agency over and think about their individual threat models. And this is one of the reasons why I've always been super hesitant on saying this is safer or that is safer, because it really just depends on user competence, technical competence, and threat models and their own individual situations on how they want to handle this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great shame that people have to worry about it. We have to worry about this. It's a sign of the times. Late stage fiat collapse. That's what it comes with. Matt would say mandibles. But
then Bitcoin standard.
Then Bitcoin standard.
The little idiocracy mixed in.
Yeah. Be good to people, though. Going back, not only brush up on your personal defense skills, getting a gun, knowing how to use that gun, making
training
sure you're
is super important.
Yeah, making sure you're physically fit, having security systems, dogs, whatever it may be. But on top of that, building community, like creating networks of community that will they'll have your back. And so that's part of what I tweeted out last night was we got to build our way out of this, use the tools, harness community, foster community, local community, specifically inmate space. Obviously, we have a great community here at Rabbit Hole Recap. We love all you freaks, but I don't think many of you live near me physically. And so the onus is on me to go out and shake my neighbors' hands, get to know them, talk about some of this stuff when the moment's right, and build good relationships where people want to watch your back because they think you're a good person. I think that's very important as well.
Neighbors helping neighbors. That's how we win.
Hold the door. We used to say it a lot. We don't say it enough anymore. Hold the door. Hold it open. It's not like you're not like what was that guy Hodor in Game of Thrones, like holding the door from the people trying to steal your Bitcoin. It's no, like
No,
you
you're
go out and
holding
you
it
see.
open. You're being a kind human.
Yeah, I think we started Hold the
A
Door
good
before that
neighbor.
show even came out, or that episode came out. Bum
In
bum bum.
in the in the YouTube chat, I see Gooptron asking whose idea was this title. All blame goes on Logan for the YouTube title, or all credit. All credit is due to Logan. And I see some guy 95K saying Elon creating space between himself and Trump to try undo the brand damage he received earlier. I mean,
No.
look, if that was the goal, it was very ineffective because he alienated all his like lib climate change supporters and got all these new MAGA supporters, and now he alienated them too. So the percentage of people that have a positive view of Elon is probably the lowest it's ever been. So if that was the goal, it was a complete fuck up.
Yes. Very big fuck up. Next on the list, 21 releases proof of reserves.
Yeah, so our buddy Jack Mallers released proof of reserves for his upcoming public Bitcoin treasury company, XXI 21. And I think this is an important step, and I think it goes hand in hand with what we were talking about earlier, which is complaining on social media is not really an effective means of change, but providing the market a alternative with that an alternative that actually incorporates the best parts of Bitcoin actually does and moves the market in a direction that I at least personally think is more responsible. Jack specifically called out the fact that you can't do this with gold. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but Elon and Trump said that they were going to walk through Fort Knox, live streaming it, and they were going to audit Fort Knox for us. And then we heard nothing. And supposedly it would take years for them to do an audit of Fort Knox. But meanwhile, you can easily prove that you own Bitcoin and show on-chain proof and have people be able to verify it at home without trust. And I think this is where the market is moving. To the people that say, oh, well, if you believe in proof of reserves, then you should post your own Bitcoin addresses. I think that is a complete straw man argument. If you're selling equity in your business based on a number of Bitcoin you hold and the number of Bitcoin you're accumulating, and you loudly shout that from the rooftops, I think shareholders have a lot of reason to expect to see some kind of verifiable proof for that. And so we see Metaplanet led the way on that. The government of El Salvador led the way on that. And now XXI is the latest to do that. So I think it's good to see. And I think we should expect that through competition and market pressure, we will see more of these Bitcoin treasury companies follow in that path.
Note on the audit, Fort Knox Rep. Thomas Massey earlier today proposed a bill to audit Fort Knox, so maybe that'll get some legs. Probably not if it's coming from Massey, and that's not disrespect to Massey. It's disrespect to his colleagues on the Hill who refuse to pick up the good acts that he puts forward, but may become get some more attention in the news cycle moving forward. Number two, Saylor. I'm not sure if you caught it. It was on CNBC this morning. He was asked about proof of reserves, and it seems like he's beginning to change his tune a little bit, which is it's insecure. But we are looking into ways he wants to use zero knowledge proofs. He's looking into ZK proofs to do it in a way that is more secure for
I'm pretty sure. First of all, shout out Silent Link, zapped us 42,000 sats. Thank you, Silent Link. I rely on your service. It's awesome. You can no KYC, get data for your cell phone with an eSIM by going to silent.link. He runs his own BTC Pay server. You pay with Bitcoin. It's fucking awesome. I'm pretty sure that the reason that Saylor doesn't want to disclose addresses is because he knows when the price turns, he's going to have to sell Bitcoin, and he doesn't want the market to see him move the Bitcoin ahead of time. I'm pretty sure that's the core of the reason, and which is why he would like to use zero knowledge proof, so you're not able to see the addresses. I think, strictly speaking, disclosing actual addresses is way better and easier to verify for the market, because you have constant verification. But any improvement there is great. And once again, there have been a lot of complaints or a lot of concern over lack of proof reserves from MicroStrategy or Strategy. I didn't mean to dead name the company. It's not a coincidence that he will likely do it because of a large, well-capitalized competitor offering it.
Yeah. On this note, though, but bring it back to XXI. Are we calling it XXI or 21? I like XXI. That's
I think officially the name is 21. The ticker is going to be XXI, but I personally prefer XXI. Oh, the last bit is some people think like Jack and Tether and SoftBank and Cantor like whipped up proof of reserves in like a day and a half because of Saylor's long-winded non-answer about proof of reserves at the conference in Vegas. That's not the case. He just like gave them a perfect setup for them announcing it. Like that was the plan the whole time.
I think he publicly spoke about doing proof of reserves before the conference, so didn't he?
I think so, but we definitely talked about it in RHR. So
yeah. Well, on that note too, Logan, pull up the tweet thread. The Tether truthers are coming back, and they're getting more sophisticated. This thread was quote tweeted by Grant Williams, who's a very well-respected macro analyst. I like Grant Williams in his takes, but he was quote tweeting this, saying something to look into. But the Tether truthers are back. Apparently, Bitcoin's being propped up by Tether alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's insane since Tether is better capitalized than the entire banking industry. They have 100,000 Bitcoin, 50 tons of gold, and that's just extra on top of their treasury reserves that actually back Tether, that are held by Cantor Fitzgerald and the founder is sitting in the White House. But eternal September, some things never get old. The last thing I would add, which I've said to Tether truthers since $800, when Bitfinex first started sounding the alarm that we should sell our Bitcoin at $800 because Tether was propping up the market. If Tether collapsed, short term, there would be a lot of volatility. But where else do you run except for Bitcoin if you're holding your money in Tether? I mean, if you're using Tether in the first place, it means you probably don't have access to the traditional financial system. You can't hold your money in Citibank or Chase or JP Morgan or HSBC or some shit. So where do you run? Are you gonna switch Tether into USDC? Probably not. Are you gonna switch Tether into Dogecoin? That would be fucking retarded. You're gonna move into Bitcoin. So I think a Tether collapse, it's hard to, if you try and logic it out, it's like I don't see how that tanks the price of Bitcoin long term. It makes no sense. It's just logically flawed.
Yeah, and then I mean there is some validation to the idea that Tether, the company, is investing a lot in supporting businesses in the space, but I think they're doing that pretty transparently. They're one of the most profitable businesses in the world in terms of profit per employee. They're taking the yields on the treasuries that they hold for the Tether reserves and dumping them into Bitcoin and subsequently reinvesting in the space. And I don't think that's some sort of wild conspiracy. It's happening out in the open. Like, they're extremely profitable. I believe
I
Paolo
think
and team, especially at Bitfinex, are hardcore Bitcoiners, and they want to see the space succeed, so they're investing in it.
yeah, look, I think look, it's just incentives at play, right? They heavily rely on Bitcoin, so obviously they want Bitcoin to be stronger, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. I mean, I saw Paolo announced at the conference that they expect to be the largest single mining entity in the world by the end of the year. They've invested $2 billion into Bitcoin mining. It's probably not the most profitable use of their money, but they're doing it because they absolutely rely on Bitcoin for the success of their business and their families. I will say that if you're going to place a conspiracy anywhere, when you have a single entity making $24 billion a year in profit, people tend to hold their tongue in terms of criticism. Even if they're not getting paid, just the idea that they might get paid does affect people and reduces criticism from happening. So that is definitely something people should be aware of. But I've personally been very impressed with how they've handled themselves within the space, and we've obviously rubbed shoulders with them many times on the 1031 side, but also on the OpenSats side and everything else. So yeah, I mean, I've never held Tether, like actual USDT. Bitcoin is my safe haven. I'd rather hold Bitcoin, but I also understand why many people want to hold dollars, particularly in the developing world where they don't have easy access to dollars otherwise.
I'll criticize Tether. The brain chip AI thing, not a big fan of that.
I mean, look, there's definitely a path where, you know, you have like evil villain stuff happen. I think their argument would be that their brain chip is the good brain chip. It's like you have
Take our
Neuralink
chip.
and then you have them. But definitely something to pay attention to. I see Wits saying you can have proof of reserves and still rehypothecate. This is absolutely true. Proof of reserves is net a win, and we should be encouraging as many companies in the space to be doing it. If FTX had done proof of reserves, there would at least been some kind of alarm there. They had no Bitcoin at the end. So regardless of liabilities, that would have helped reduce the pain that was felt by anyone who was holding money and got caught holding the bag at FTX or BlockFi, for instance, or Celsius. But ultimately, the real proof of reserves is self-custody Bitcoin, and you should learn how to do self-custody. It's easier than it's ever been before. There's plenty of things we do in our lives that is overwhelming, but we do them because we have to, and because we're adults, even though it's crazy that we're adults. And you should do that. And I don't know. Marty gave me a look. I just always think of the Joe Rogan or whatever that I used to think like adults knew everything, but it's, you know, everyone's just kind of winging it. But like, I mean, you drive a car, right? People die all the time driving cars. Somehow humanity has survived going through the process of childbirth, generation after generation, raising kids. These things are all incredibly difficult, but we do them for our family. We do them for our livelihoods. Same with self-custody. Self-custody is easier than all of those things. And you should, if you're overwhelmed in the beginning, dip your toe in, get comfortable. But ultimately, the only real proof of reserves is self-custody. And the single biggest fact that we're proud of at Strike is that 90% of Bitcoin held on Strike is self-custodied. And I don't think that's the type of stat that just happens by accident. That's when you build, if you build tooling in a certain way, people are more likely to take self-custody and do it. And for instance, Strike has free withdrawals. The messaging encourages self-custody heavily. So yeah. And last but not least, I mean, I have a guide at werunbtc.com/coldcard, which is my preferred method for storing large amounts of Bitcoin in self-custody. definitely check it out. It's easier than you think it is.
It is. I forget who I was having a conversation with recently. Who was it? Oh, it was at the Bitcoin John meetup. We were talking about like hardware wallets, and I was suggesting the Q. I love the Q. The Q is a big, beautiful Bitcoin hardware wallet. The Q, the big, beautiful Bitcoin bank. That's what I'm going to call it. NVK, new marketing. The big, beautiful Bitcoin bank, the Q. And people are like, it's too confusing for people. It's not. You literally just put the batteries in, press power, and follow the instructions, and you'll have a Bitcoin wallet in no time. It's like,
well, the confusing part of cold cards is the reason people get overwhelmed is because they have so many power user features. You can use them in so many different ways, but it's actually pretty straightforward if you just use it in the most simple way. And so use it in the most simple way first. Like, don't overthink it. Like, you don't have to start with multisig. You download Sparrow Wallet, create a single sig wallet. You don't have to roll dice. You don't have to use your own node in the beginning. Like all the power user stuff, you can learn as you go and start from the base. And if you start from that base, it's way, way easier to use than a lot of alternatives. But
yeah,
any tool that is freedom focused requires more personal responsibility. Like that's the trade-off, because you don't have someone telling you what to do.
Sack up, freaks. Stop complaining. Oh, I don't know what to do. It's too hard. Spend some time. Practice. Do the research. Play with it. Going back, intentionally blank. I don't know if you were listening earlier. He asked the question, we need more leaders of Bitcoin who are U.S. veterans who are running firearms training companies for American civilians and who are good people. How do we do that? How do we bring them into the space? They're already here. If you're a veteran, intentionally blank, or if you're looking for veterans, the Bitcoin veterans, they're a geographically distributed group of veterans that are also Bitcoiners doing not only this type of work, but they were pivotal last year during the natural disasters in Appalachia, in North Carolina, Tennessee. They were there on the ground doing emergency response, providing Starlinks and mesh networks and helping people set up Bitcoin wallets if they needed it to pay for goods. So that group already exists. Go check them out.
Bitcoinveterans.org. Also, Anon zapped us 21,000 sats. Said if you don't want to spend sats on gym memberships, check out f3nation.com. Free peer-led workout groups in your area. Good way to connect with fit dudes in your area and expand your community. He's dropped into the Nashville chapter while visiting the park. 7 to 5 would recommend. All fitness levels welcome. Hardest part is showing up.
Show up.
It's a cool concept.
Hand up. There was a really good CrossFit group in Austin. A lot of hardcore Bitcoiners went. I showed up twice or once. Showed up once. Puked and never went back. But CrossFit's not for me. I can't do the high cardio. I can't do the HIIT workouts. It's never worked for me. Moving on the list. American HODL. Oh, excuse me. I almost skipped over OpenSats long-term support for Snowcate.
You just skipped over something else. The OpenSats long-term support, we've announced another long-term support. This is for a key developer in the Nostr ecosystem. Like I said, I think Nostr is more important than ever. I think it's very complementary with Bitcoin. I think regardless of what happens with the richest man in the world, that we can communicate in a verifiable way without permission, and organize among the ride or dies is incredibly powerful and important, and keep pushing that forward. So shout out Snowcate. Obviously, if you want to support OpenSats, we are a 501c3. We take no cut of donations. So you get a tax deduction, or you can donate anonymously with Bitcoin at OpenSats.org. We also recently added monthly reoccurring donations with dollars, if that's more your style. Every ride or die giving $20 a month, and then us auto stacking it to Bitcoin for freedom focused developers is a pretty powerful concept that I hope to see come to reality. It was one of the original concepts of OpenSats when we first got started. What you did skip over was a big piece of news that I think
Yes.
the freaks should be very well aware of, is a court has ordered OpenAI to keep all ChatGPT logs and other AI logs that they have. Obviously, you should assume that everything you do on OpenAI is recorded forever and used against you regardless. But now it is court mandated. So now it is even more obvious. I don't think people realize how much information they leak when they use these tools. And they're getting fed right back into the AIs to be used against us in the future. And yeah, I got rid of my Austin background.
Hey,
I grew tired of it.
It looks so good. Looks so good. But no, I mean, this OpenAI stuff. Excuse me.
Someone just knocked on his hotel room door. Is it the maid?
I'm not gonna let her come in and clean the room while I'm on the show like you would. But
hey, I had my family with me, and my toddler and our dogs had made quite a mess, and we had missed maid service for like 2 days, so it was necessary. It was a good decision. She was tipped well, and hopefully she bought Bitcoin as a result.
Hopefully, we were talking to her, and I couldn't see her, but I was talking to her. No, the OpenAI stuff. I mean, this is pretty systemic. I mean, obviously AI has been the hot chick on the block for the last 2 years, and everybody and their mother is wholly convinced, myself included, that is going to become a massive part of our lives in the years to come. And if 3 years into consumer viable AI products being released, the government is mandating that these companies keep every single log that their customers are punching into the inference, that's not great. Great for freedom, and it highlights the need for alternatives that protect privacy. And another 1031 portfolio company that we're very proud of is OpenSecret, and they've built a development kit that leverages secure enclaves in the cloud so that users can protect their data while using applications end-to-end encrypted from the mobile app or the web app to the cloud, and only the user can access the data. And their first product that they've released is Maple AI, which allows you to run large language models in these enclaves and privately ping the models in a end-to-end encrypted fashion. So I think great week for OpenSecret and Maple in terms of highlighting their value prop and why they exist in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be plenty more marketing opportunities as these things, because most people just don't give a shit and they're going to do it anyway, and it will be used against them. And I see Stack Toshi in the Ride or Die live chat mentioning that OpenAI also has KYC elements attached to it as well. So mandated logging plus KYC plus LLMs is a recipe for disaster. The other option, of course, is to run local open source LLMs. LM Studio is a great option. I think it's available on all three desktop OSs, Linux, Mac, and Windows. Also, stop using Windows if you're using Windows, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
I think this is a trend that we're going to be watching. It's going to become more and more common. Do you want to, at this point, I guess let's watch HODL's Nostr ad. American HODL made a Nostr ad, and then we'll read the shout outs, and then we'll go to the next section.
all right.
The internet was supposed to be our enlightenment. It was supposed to set us free. Instead, it became a digital prison.
Centralized platforms decide what you see, what you say, what you are.
But freedom doesn't ask permission. It runs on open protocols. It runs on Nostr.
With Nostr, there are no gatekeepers. It's just nodes and other stuff transmitted by relay.
Built for speech, fueled by Bitcoin, owned by no one, controlled by you.
Nostr gives everyone on Earth the ability to speak freely forever. That's new, and we think that's a very big deal.
This isn't an app. It's a protocol, and it cannot be stopped.
The internet is ours again. Own your voice, own your keys, own your future on Nostr. The internet was...
Boom. Shout out to American HODL.
It's got me going.
Highlighting the power of AI. AI can be used for good. I wonder if he used Google Veo 3 for that.
He did. He said he did.
Yeah.
There was like the elite, the ultra subscription or whatever, which is $250.
It's crazy what we can do now.
Supposed to be our enlightenment.
Yeah.
Logan.
If you scroll, apparently it just autoplays.
I don't, well, you can disable that in settings. People like the autoplay. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, those people weren't real people, obviously. But
they weren't?
I think he did a great job with it. It was a banger.
Shout out to you, American HODL. It was great seeing you in person last week in Vegas. And as mentioned, we'll move on to Boost from last week's episode. Freedom Tech is Hope, Rabbit Hole Recap 359. One boost to read, one to shout out. Pringle Mac, 22,222 sats, twos across the board, palindrome boost. Traveling through Peru a second time. And we have noticed a significant change. This time people have gone from indifference last year to knowing they now need Bitcoin. Ran into two young French girls selling banana bread at a world famous left. Oh, world famous left. It's a wave. So they were at a world famous left break. They mentioned my Bitcoin hat. It opened up the conversation. I zapped them sats for their baked goods. Turns out they were little stackers. It's a beautiful thing. Be the change you want to see in the world. Love Pringle. PS zapped 44,444 sats last week to general RHR account. Hope you got your cut, Matt. Thank you, Pringle. The continued zaps. And there was no net message. No message attached to this. I don't know if it was streamed, but StimD either streamed or zapped us 21,512 sats for last week's episode. So thank you, StimD, as well.
Thank you, freaks, for supporting the show with Bitcoin.
It's a great thing. Bitcoin is money.
If you want to participate in that, Fountain Podcast does a really good job of having the comments built in and the zaps built in. And then obviously, if you are interested in playing around with Nostr, consider downloading the Primal app in your favorite app store. We've come a long way. It's starting to get really stable. We got some big new features coming out in the next week or two. We'd love to have you with us. Everyone who uses Nostr makes it more useful. So,
yes. We don't have a Human Rights Foundation Financial Freedom Report story of the week lined up. However, we do have some.
Well, they skipped this. They skipped this week.
They skipped this week. Big week for them last week in Oslo. I'm sure they're licking their wounds, or maybe not licking their wounds, but resting on after their biggest conference of the year over in Oslo, the Freedom Forum. They released a newsletter or an email on vibe coding. So it seems like it's public now, but Justin Moon has joined HRF as leading initiatives around AI. And at the Oslo Freedom Forum, Justin and Jack demoed how they vibe code, basically just voice to text, vibe code a website within 8 minutes for an activist group. And it seems like HRF is really leaning into the AI wave, and I would imagine is going to be extremely supportive of tools that preserve privacy as when it comes to AI, and also education around how activists and people living under despotic regimes can use AI to make their situation a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, like most new technology, right? It can be used as a helpful tool, and it can be used to oppress people. And I think AI used by individuals in a freedom focused way can be incredibly powerful. And so we're seeing this trend of vibe coding, this idea that you can build out many different functionalities without actually having strong developer experience relatively easily. And particularly, it becomes really powerful when you interact with open protocols like Bitcoin and Nostr and open source AI models, right? Because then you don't need an API, you don't need any permission to access these things. You can just build them out on the fly. So it's definitely a major trend to watch. A lot of Oslo Freedom Forum this year was focused on that. And so it was really great to see HRF highlight that as things develop. I see Anon Zapdos 42,000 sats. Thank you both for what you do. GG and VA. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. Shout out to everybody here. Both the live or all the live streams, whether you're on Zap.stream, YouTube, X, wherever else we're streaming. I think that's all. That's it as of right now. Give us some engagement. Hit the like button. Hit the Zap button. Hit the retweet button.
Did you say Twitch?
No. Are we on Twitch still?
Yeah, because I disabled it one week and like 3 freaks were like, "That's how I find out you're live." So then I just re-enabled it.
We're on Twitch too. Shout out to
we don't like actively.
Shout out to the half dozen of you listening to us on Twitch.
We don't actively promote it. I will say, if you go to primal.net/RHR, it's the only place where you can watch past streams and know that they haven't been altered or deep faked, because everything is hashed and signed when we upload to Nostr. So that's the pinnacle of truth, because there's going to be a lot of, as you can see from American HODL's video, there's going to be a lot of fake shit. A lot of fake shit.
Yeah, it's here. It's upon us. I don't want to dwell on it because we'll get down a rabbit hole. Pun intended. Speaking of the HRF, we mentioned the Oslo Freedom Forum. If you want to watch the Freedom Tech Talks, obviously the Bitcoin conference was going on during the same week, so many people were at the Bitcoin conference, missed what was going on in Oslo, which was also being live streamed. So if you're there and you want to check out those talks, those incredible talks, we're going to link to the YouTube playlist with all the talks from the forum in the show notes.
Yeah, we mentioned it last week. I highly recommend you check them out. But last week we linked to like a 5.5 hour omnibus video. Now they're actually like split up and cut up and produced. So check out that link. And then I actually, no, we'll just continue.
Continue? We'll continue. On to software updates. LND version 0.19.0 beta has been released with RBF cooperative close, improved payment reliability, and more. So running LND, consider upgrading. Zeus Pay Plus Premium subscription has launched. This comes with some cool features, including 20% off all their LSP channel lease services, custom Lightning address handles, access to their web-based point of sale, early access to new features, and access to exclusive merch. Merch, so hot. Everybody hopping on the merch train after Skylar launched these dope hats that Matt and I are both wearing.
Yeah, Skylar invented merch. It's a brand new train, brand new trend.
I will say he didn't invent merch, but I think Skylar has injected some class and better aesthetics to the Bitcoin merch game, for which the longest time Bitcoin merch was subpar, would never wear. Too in your face, too ugly.
I don't know. I think there's been plenty of great Bitcoin merch throughout the years. I think Skylar does a great job, but I think one issue is that there's just an overwhelmingly large quantity of Bitcoin merch, so there's a lot of shit out there. But
that's a good point.
We
mentioned it earlier.
Been some great merch through the years.
We mentioned it earlier.
Check out Zeus. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go check out. No, before we got to give Zeus its props. Go check out Zeus.
Yeah, Zeus is one of the best Bitcoin wallets, Bitcoin projects in the world. You know, I put it up there with things like Sparrow. Like I rely on it all the time. There is no second best. Yeah, see, look, we see BTC Pins. BTC Pins makes great merch.
Great
He's
BTC
had
pins.
awesome Zeus pins. He's had dispatch pins.
I'm not talking about pins. I'm talking about like hats,
grenades.
shirts. Look,
like I mean, you're wrong. You're just wrong. But there's a lot of bad shit out there. I agree with that. But yeah, Zeus. Look, Zeus is trying to become a sustainable project, and despite what some people espouse out there, it is very difficult to create a sustainable open source Bitcoin wallet that is profitable and independent. There's no one size fits all approach, and one key aspect of creating a profitable open source Bitcoin wallet is value add services, stuff like this premium package. So if you find it just helpful, consider subscribing. It comes with a lot of beneficial features for you, but also it means that Evan and his team are compensated and ready to maintain this project for the long term, because we need these types of projects to be generational.
Shout out to Evan. We were talking about it at Bitcoin John on Monday. I think the Zeus graduated wallet, self-custodial wallet model. I mean, we've discussed it on the show in the last month or two, but bears repeating. The ability to immediately receive Bitcoin payments via eCash and then build up a balance that allows you to quote unquote graduate to self-custodial Lightning wallet in Zeus. I think that's going to catch on as the go-to out of the box model for these wallets that want to inevitably get people to self-custody.
Yeah, I think if you want like easy microtransactions in the beginning, there's really no other way, because ultimately to use Lightning in a sovereign way, you need an on-chain transaction. And so that prices out right now in the current market environment, it prices out any kind of payments under maybe 10,000 sats. It's kind of a moving target. I will say for amounts higher than that, Phoenix has done just a fantastic job. But it really works better when your first deposit into the app is on the larger side. While this cashew graduated method is better for people that don't have any Bitcoin and want to receive zaps on Nostr, for instance.
Yeah. Shout out to Jeremy Watt. I don't know if he's watching via X or YouTube. He says, "Holy shitballs. I just jumped into my first ever live RHR, 3 a.m., couldn't sleep, and after an hour and a half tossing and turning, picked up my phone, and voila. Hi, guys. 4+ years listening, first time live. Welcome to the live rip, Jeremy. It's great to have you. Sorry you can't sleep. It's never fun when you can't sleep."
Where is it 4:30 a.m. right now?
It's 3 a.m. Oh, yeah. Well, it's 3 a.m. Couldn't sleep up for an hour and a half.
No.
Somewhere in Eastern Europe. Middle East.
Anyway, shout out to you, Jeremy. Thank you for joining us.
We mentioned it earlier, but we linked to it as well. P2P.band. This is
awesome.
Open order book for P2P KYC free Bitcoin. It looks like P2P.band is aggregating all the buy and sell orders from RoboSats and LN P2P bot. So if you want to,
and Mostro. Yeah.
Okay.
So all of these guys agreed on a single standard to broadcast orders via Nostr. So even if you're using different apps, you have the ability to have this global accessible order book. And this is another perfect example of where something like Nostr is incredibly complementary with Bitcoin, because this was not possible previously without a centralized server involved.
It's great to see. It's beautiful to see. Aesthetically pleasing too. I believe there's 1.5 Bitcoin in terms of order book depth right now. So we could pump those numbers. Last I checked, I can't see the screen on my laptop, it's too far away, but I think there's around 400 total orders, many different currencies. So this would be cool to see if Nostr is able to solve one of the larger problems of these P2P Bitcoin exchanges over the course of the many years, which is the liquidity problem that exists. The order book depth is historically very thin, and so maybe you can solve that problem by aggregating the order book depth of all these individual P2P markets, and maybe this is part of the something that could bring a solution to that problem.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to have Bisq on there. It'd be great to have HODL on there. It'd be great to have Peach on there. And the cool part is they have a strong incentive to do it, which is greater utility for users and greater liquidity. And they can do it without permission. Like, they don't have to sign legal agreements between services. They can just easily implement this, broadcast their order book via Nostr, and pull in the global order book via Nostr. Pretty fucking cool. Can do it without permission. This actual website was vibe coded by KoalaSat, just to go on the vibe coded stat. I don't know how long it took him, but pretty fucking cool. Soap Miner zapped us 21,000 sats again. I think he already zapped us 21,000 sats. Yeah, he did. So a total of 42,000 sats. He said, "Do you and Marty support HODL's run for president in 2028? I don't know, Marty, if you saw this, but Nostr's been running wild. By the way, American HODL doesn't get enough credit. He's been pretty much Nostr exclusive for like 3 or 4 months now, 5 months now. So if you've been missing him on X, download the Primal app if you want to interact with him. But it's been running wild on Nostr that he's going to run for president with Eric Kaysen in 2028. How do you feel about this?
I love it. It was on the news desk Wednesday morning of the conference last week. Or was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. And Eric, it was me, Eric, and Pierre Rochard. And in classic Eric Kaysen fashion,
I saw that.
Opened up with "fuck the state" and went on an incredible monologue.
So, I like how
I would support that ticket.
Some talking head was like, and then Bitcoin Magazine shut him up. It's like, no, like you have to rush your commentary in before they run to the next thing on stage.
No, they bring him up there on purpose. Frank knew what he was going to say.
You can give Bitcoin Magazine a lot of shit, but the fuck the state narrative is something that they've embodied for a bit. Did you see this meme that was posted on Nostr? I just posted a link in. This was from Trey on Nostr, and he said, "Imagine American HODL becomes president, will be going door to door, being like, here's your cold card and assault rifle. Mandatory training begins tomorrow morning at 0900." And there's an AI suit picture of HODL. I thought this was fucking hilarious.
That is incredible.
And on point. And shout out Trey Walsh, who runs Progressive Bitcoiners. Obviously, is not the biggest assault rifle proponent, but he said he would even vote for HODL. I would just say, we get really poor options with presidents. I think HODL would be a great president. As a friend, I would tell him not to do it. I wouldn't. It probably sucks to be fucking president. He's better off just living his private life. But as an American, I support it.
I was reminded today that presidents, once you become president, you're never allowed to drive again.
The Secret Service drives you around.
You're not allowed to drive a car. That alone, I love driving. I love having control over my vehicle. I'm not saying that I'm worthy of being president of the United States, but if someone were like, you should run for president, there was a good chance I could win, I'd be like, I want to drive. Can't do it.
Well, I hate to break it to you, Marty, but the trend we're going in is only rich people will be allowed to drive vehicles going forward, because they're going to make insurance prohibitively expensive if you're not using a self-driving car. That is 100% where we're going. And all you have to do is follow big business incentives to see that's the path. And they won't outright ban it. They'll just make it overly expensive to.
I think we've talked about that. I think we talked about it last year, but the sci-fi, futuristic sci-fi narratives that are coming true, I think Minority Report is definitely up there. That is Minority Report to a T.
Yeah.
Pre-crime, and then he was in the self-driving car, and they like drove him to the court.
Yeah, Palantir, pre-crime shit.
Yeah, iRobot too.
Tesla self-driving shit. Tesla again. The chip stuff is definitely happening. 1984 was not dystopian enough. People just like buy the shit. Kill decision. We're going to be talking about that later, but autonomous drone swarms.
Yeah. All right, let's get to it.
Paulie zapped us 21,000 sats saying Mandible World. Yeah, that's, there's plenty of good books out there. I love reading, especially science fiction and like near-term science and like near-term fiction. But the reason I always harp on Mandibles, it's not like I think it's the best book out there. I mean, it's kind of poorly written, but she does hit a lot of those points in one book.
You've had her on your show before.
Yeah, I know. And she got $120,000 worth of donations for coming on my show. Like, you're welcome, Lionel. But it hits a lot of the points all in one book, and it's based in the US. So as Americans, I think it's particularly helpful. But yeah, anyway, I just to put a pin in the HODL thing, I completely support a government initiative to incentivize self-custody and gun ownership and gun training and self-custody training. I think that would be like the single best thing that could improve the national security of this country.
We'd be the strongest nation in the world if that became an initiative.
Easily.
Moving on, the announcement of End Other Stuff. This is really cool to see. Rabble, Alex Gleason, Jeff G, and Callie are joining forces to help grow Nostr in these 5 key pillars: onboarding and UX, communities, private messaging, commerce, and AI. They launched their first collaborative product, Chorus, last week at the Oslo Freedom Forum. Chorus enables organizers to raise permissionless money for their cause with Facebook-style groups. The collective is backed by a $10 million grant from Jack Dorsey, operating under the fiscal sponsorship of Open Collective Europe. The funds will be spent directly on contributors working collaboratively and strategically on these 5 key pillars. This is really cool to see.
Yeah, so this is like basically a vibe coding skunkworks division of Nostr. I haven't talked to the guys about it specifically, but I'm pretty sure that Jack is more actively involved with this than just being a donor. Like, I think he's like working alongside them in a lot of ways. He's been very focused on vibe coding. I will say Gleason specifically has put out a lot of tools in terms of vibe coding and Nostr recently. I think one of the tools, I haven't played around with it yet, is called Stacks, not to be confused by the shitcoin, which is unfortunate. I think it's stacks.dev. Is it stack? Nope, not stacks.dev. Anyway, we'll cover that in the future. But pretty cool to see, and we'll see what they come up with. There's a lot of empowerment that can happen on the vibe coding side in terms of iterating fast and seeing what works and what doesn't. But I would encourage people, like, we also need like long-term stable projects that are maintained and not like jumping between things. These are all different pieces, and so it's really good to see this. And Chorus was cool. I don't know if you played around with Chorus, but supposedly they made it in like a week, and it's like group chats with Nostr, public group chats with Nostr and Bitcoin payments built in, specifically focused on human rights organizations being able to raise money and coordinate.
Vibe code with intention, all through.
Yeah.
All right.
Martin Baralik zapped us 21,000 sats saying, "Thank you both for pushing my values to the right direction 4 years ago. No KYC, privacy and FOSS, never miss RHR, have a beer on me. Have a beer on me is what I imagine he meant to say. We don't want no bears, but thanks for the beer.
We're gonna go slaughter the bears. Fuck the bears, as Ben Carter would say. He's
We
giving
appreciate
us money to
you. Ride or die freak. Never missed an episode in 4 years. That's what it's all about.
go. So how many days has he spent with us? That's 2/3. You've probably spent 5 days with us. Thank you.
No, longer than that.
Oh wait, no. What was it? 23 days?
I thought it was like 27.
Maybe.
I don't know. A lot of days.
There's some freaks out there who are going to spend like a whole month of their life with us. It's an honor and a privilege to be along with you freaks. Right. Thank you guys.
I see MVK in the comments saying stamp your seeds. Yeah, the single easiest way to secure your backup for a single sig wallet or a multi-sig wallet is to use steel backups. Highly recommend steel backups. Very straightforward. You're basically taking your seed and you're stamping it into steel. There's different mechanisms of doing that. Most common one is use like a dot punch, and you're punching dots into a grid. But the beauty of steel is simple. It's offline. It's waterproof. It's fire resistant. It depends on how hot the fire is and how good the steel is, but it's fire resistant. And it's physical. You can hold it in your hand. Now, obviously, if someone gets access to that, they have access to your funds, so you want to keep that very secure. Multi-sig helps in that regard, and so does passphrases. But if you use a passphrase, which is, you can think of it as your 25th word of your seed, if you lose that passphrase, you lose your money. So secure that as well, probably in a different place than your seed. Be aware, freaks.
What's the one automated seed stamping project?
Don't use the automated seed stamping project. Just stamp it yourself. Yeah, but it's just you're adding complexity where you can't verify. Does it have memory in it? Does it have this? The beautiful thing is that you can just do it all by hand. Just do it by hand.
Yeah, it's true. All right, we don't have to get into
it. I'd rather you go to the hardware store, buy washers, and stamp that shit into washers than use a computerized seed tool.
Yeah.
Incredible. But I think it's called seed. I think it's called Seedment for what it's worth.
Seedment. Incredible saying, or make one simple change to your steel seed that you can remember, like swapping 2 words or putting it backwards. Be careful. Make sure you actually remember that, because if you don't, it could cause a lot of problems for you. All right, 2 more stories on the list, more in the macroeconomic/geopolitical realm. There was a Chinese couple arrested earlier this week for bringing a crop disease into the U.S. I believe this was a fungus that, if released into the wilderness, would have has the potential to decimate wheat, corn, a bunch of other crops. If animals eat it, makes them sick. It's the food system. So, foiled bioterrorism attempt. Is this what we're calling this? What would you label this as?
I like that, foiled bioterrorism attempt.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's no way to know for sure that the goal was to fuck with American crops. Their claim is that they were using it they just wanted to do research in America with it. So innocent until proven guilty, but 2 CCP connected smart people from China secretly smuggled in something that fucks up crops.
The last thing being worked on in the Chinese lab that got released was not good. It was not good.
And it was a Chinese lab funded by Americans.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think we're gonna put our own Chinese firewall in China with all this stuff going on?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think we're gonna get? Will we reach the point under the Trump administration where we kick out Chinese nationals under the guise of, we don't know if you're officially associated with the CCP, we're just going to assume you all are, so you're not allowed to work in universities and laboratories and in systems that we deem critical to our national security.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I will say that it's a very messy situation, all this stuff, right? When it comes to deportations, when it comes to lack of due process, when it comes to empowering the executive branch to do things outside of courts, it can get messy very quickly. But at the same time, it's a crazy world that we're living in, and our enemies don't play by rules either. So I don't pretend to have the answer there, but I do think I think the world probably gets messier before it gets better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What makes you think that? The world's richest man and the world's most powerful man having an online spat for the better part of 12 hours?
I think that, look, the most actionable thing, right, is to focus on yourself and your community and your family and try and improve your own situation, because that actually, you actually make progress there.
Yeah. Yes, beware. Foiled bioterrorism attempt here in the United States this week, and a scene out of The Sovereign Individual in Russia earlier this week, which was Operation Spiderweb, where the Ukrainian army smuggled shipping containers filled with drones deep into Russian territory and attacked strategic long-range aircraft. I wrote about it on Monday, I believe, but I think this will be looked at as one of the pivotal turning points of the history of war. Obviously, we've been seeing the drone attacks on individual Russian soldiers that have been used for the last couple of years. I'm sure you've all seen the grainy videos of a soldier running for his life and a drone just runs into him, blows up, and he's dead. But I think this particular attack, smuggling the drones deep into Russian territory and then attacking very expensive strategic military equipment, many of those aircraft, people are saying, could be used to send nuclear bombs and deploy nuclear bombs. I think this is an escalation that validates something that cypherpunks have been talking about for years, is that when you get to the point where the drone technology is sufficient and advanced enough, the asymmetries of war shift dramatically. And so with probably tens of thousands of dollars worth of drone equipment, the Ukrainian army was able to levy tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of cost on the Russian army. And not only that, I think the deeper thing here, it really throws a wrench in the nuclear game theory that has held many nuclear powers at bay over the course of decades since the Cold War, because the Russian army or the Russian Air Force had those planes out and like sitting ducks because of the way the nuclear treaties work. As if you're going to be a nuclear armed nation, one of the things is we need to be able to see your nuclear capable aircraft, and so you have to keep them out, and so we can track them with satellite
reserves.
Yeah, exactly. And so by levying this type of attack, sort of increases the incentive for people to hide this and to bring more uncertainty into the world of nuclear war, which is not great, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I think that incentive probably, or that incentive probably already existed. And I mean, I think you're probably pretty naive if you think America is fully disclosing all of our capabilities and Russia is fully disclosing all of our capabilities, regardless of what was signed. I think I've said this in the past, but there's a really great book by Daniel Suarez that I think he wrote in 2009 called Kill Decision, about this topic specifically. And he does it in a fiction sense. So it's an easy, exciting read. And I recommend people read that. we've seen little bits and pieces of this trend already, particularly the big one being the Houthis in Yemen, and closing down shipping channels for very cheap. Now, there's an additional step that we haven't seen yet really at scale that I think takes it to a whole nother level, which is, so these drones were built off the shelf parts, like very accessible drones. But they were FPV human controlled drones. So they're first person view human controlled drones. So every drone that flew out of a storage container off the back of a truck within Russia, like allegedly it was like near the Kazakhstan border. There's a lot of anti-Russian elements in Kazakhstan, but far away from the Ukrainian border. They got these things in, they spent 18 months, but every drone seems to have been controlled by a human. At least that's the speculation. And as a result, there's two things, right? First of all, your scale is limited by the humans controlling it, but also you can jam communications. Now, the next step, which is what is covered heavily in kill decision, is when you give that kill decision to the drone itself, powered by local AI. So it can't be jammed, and you can have thousands of them that operate together and independently to attack a target. And if you do that with off-the-shelf parts, you can actually do it in a way that you have plausible deniability. Like, the whole world knows Ukraine did this. Now imagine if you had a bunch of planes blown up or someone assassinated or something, and it was by a drone swarm that couldn't be jammed, and you have no idea who sent them because they used off-the-shelf parts and they weren't controlled by humans. You can't track a signal or anything like that. And that's the next step. And we're very, very close to that. And that really is, there's no easy solution to that. That's just a paradigm shift. That's just a whole new world that we live in. And it's something that people should be aware of. But I don't know how you defend against that at scale. I think that just changes everything.
Yeah. You have to be walking around with like EMF boxes that are able to see. I mean, Anduril, they demoed a product like this a couple months ago, but they're building it. I think it's not so subtle anymore, but the US government recognizes this. This is why they're very supportive of companies like Anduril and similar ones. But going back to the beginning of the conversation, like, they're using Palantir AI, and they'll be able to use like facial recognition to directly target individuals. And I think there's going to be a period of time, and I wrote about it in the newsletter. I said I'm like conflicted because you definitely want the defensive capabilities of this technology. If your enemies are going to have the drone capabilities, you certainly want people with American interest and companies with American interest to build the same capabilities from a defensive perspective so that we can protect ourselves from these things.
No, the defensive perspective that's the PSYOP. There's no defensive perspective. The only defense here is having an incredibly potent offensive perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what Anduril is building.
Yeah.
And Palmer Luckey has talked about putting AI in goggles for police officers that scan our faces and shit and connect to autonomous drone swarms. And he's building the American version. And there's definitely a Chinese version. And you can bet that the Israelis and the Russians and everyone else is working on it. And a lot of this shit's going to be off the shelf parts. And to our earlier conversation about kidnappings or ransoms or thefts of rich people, like, imagine if someone can hit a public figure that they don't like. It doesn't have to be a president or a politician. It could be an influencer or just anyone, founder. Look at the United Healthcare CEO, and they just send 400 drones at them. It's very, very difficult to defend against that because it's just an overwhelming. The strategy is just overwhelm any kind of defenses. And if the goal is you can't jam it, and so if the goal is to just knock out any electronics in the area, well, it's like, okay, so then you're living like an Amish person because I mean, you're just knocking out everything. And most HOAs probably will not allow that. So it's just a crazy. And what about dense cities? Like, I don't know. Like, that's just.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to have the answer here, but it's something that has not kept me up at night, but I've thought about for years. And in a lot of ways, it's happened slower than expected, but in a lot of ways, it's happening faster than expected. And we'll see how it all plays out.
Well, I think about this a lot too. And I mean, based off of what you said, like off the shelf parts, you can have no idea where it's coming from. Like, for the longest time, my hope is that it gets to the point where everybody has the technology, so nobody uses it. It's sort of similar to nuclear game theory, but with nuclear bombs. Like, it's pretty hard not to know where they're coming from, and it probably isn't that hard to find out who launched the bomb after it's launched. But in this scenario, like, does that layer of privacy just completely bork that nuclear game theory?
Yeah, the plausible deniability is the key piece.
Yeah.
And you could actually do, like, you can take it a step further, right? And like, you can intentionally make it seem like the Chinese did it or something, but you're really just random person with $500,000, and you just fucking launch 400, 500 swarm drones at someone.
Yeah, wasn't it Pegasus, or what was the other one? Spider? Where the Israelis
this operation was called. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pegasus is NSO Group. So that's how they hack phones or whatever, which is an Israeli company that like came out of like Israeli DOD.
Yeah.
And claims to not be affiliated with them.
Crazy times. Let's not end on a doomer note. Make sure you hold the door. Make sure you're nice to people. I think the way out of this is to create a more civil society, hopefully.
Well, on a positive note, in that type of world, distributed open protocols and these robust systems are way more reliable than the centralized structures that our society is currently built on top of, right? If you want to take down the SWIFT network or PayPal or Bank of America or something, there's a lot of weak points there. If you want to take down Bitcoin, it's very, very difficult, even in a world with drone swarms and plausible deniability and all that shit. And I think there's some corollaries there with Nostr. I mean, it's not a perfect analogy, but like if you wanted to take down X, there's a lot of ways you could do that. There's a lot of vulnerabilities there, and even Nostr in its infancy right now is much more difficult to take down.
Yeah. Wild times. Mandibles, fourth turning. The Great Awakening. Maybe Age of Aquarius. Isn't that supposed to be peaceful times? Transitions into peaceful times. Maybe. Don't let this overwhelm you. I'm seeing it in the live chat. A lot of people are saying, "Yikes!" Don't just be aware of what's going on. Potential ramifications of that. We're not saying this is definitely going to happen, but it's happening. Well, it's likely. Understand it and try to prepare accordingly.
Love you, freaks. Stay humble, stack sets.
Peace and love.